Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience Divisional Round DraftKings picks and preview every position. Do not be afraid to give this episode a like. It goes a long way. Also, subscribe to the audio feed if you just want to listen to the podcast while you're going on the train or driving in your car or killing time at work when you're trying to make it look like you are working, but certainly are not. You can do that on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. Plus, leave a review. Always goes a long way. I did say that I'd be giving out some prizes for moving into the new studio, and I have done that. So, you specific people, I did the draw, and if you go into your DraftKings account right now, you might have some extra bucks to play with this weekend. So the winners of the Pat Mayo Experience DK giveaway are, for the $20 level, there's 8 of you. E. Patterson FS, predictions too good. 12, Robert. Al Robe, Packer Fan, 50, 49, or 94. Pip Osant, Cal Hurricane, and Riz Bryant, $20 winners. The $50 winners, another Steve, L Mart, 1313, Lexi Dog, 17. The $75 winners, V Rod, 305, and Todd Albo. And the big grand prize, the $100 DraftKings bucks in your account. Right now, shout out to Yayo for Jayo. Good name. Big winner. Put that to good use because on the line today from Roto Grinders, we got the Siege. CJ Kaltenbach, what's going on, brother?
What's going on, Pat? Good to be here.
I'm sorry you didn't enter the draw and you didn't have a chance to win.
That's okay. Even if I had won, you'd just been like, nah, it's on another name.
That's true. It would have looked super rigged if that was the way. And that was the thing. Like, if it was up to me, I just would have given it out to the longest watching people of the show. But, you know, I had to put the names down. Stupidly, I went and wrote them all down on little things of paper and put them in a hat and, like, drew them out. So I'm shocked there was no repeat winners, frankly, because there were certain people that did it every single week. But again, give the episode a like. Maybe we can do some more giveaways in the future and get yourself some DraftKings bucks or some PME swag. Let's get into these games. There's 4 games on the slate, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. Do you have any specific strategy when it comes to front-loading your lineups with riskier players, or even like you're going to have to pay down at some sort of position? Do you think it makes sense to take a flyer on, let's say, whoever the cheap receiver is in the first game, knowing that if it hits, you can switch onto the chalk with more expensive guys later on in the day?
Switching on to chalk, Pat, you know who you brought on?
I do, but doesn't that make sense theoretically from a game theory perspective?
I mean, sure, yeah. I wouldn't start going and play crazy lineups after that. But on a 4-game slate, like, I'm just going to play my guys, and either my guys hit or my guys don't. Like, this week it's going to be how many Patriots can I physically fit into a lineup? You know, and that's kind of going to be my strategy moving across all the teams this week.
Do you find it preferable to do a single game stack where, like, you like the Patriots? Does that mean you're going to follow it up with some Titans too?
Maybe 1 or 2, maybe 1, maybe 2. But like, Tennessee is not good at football. I don't care that Anderkirk somehow jinxed them into a win. Like, they're still terrible. They were down 21-3, and it took all the powers of the Anderkirks to get Tennessee to win that game. So we know that the Patriots are immune. So give me all the points the Patriots could possibly score.
All right, let's jump straight into running backs, and there's one guy that you really need to pay attention to because he's way more expensive than every single player on the slate. Le'Veon Bell is $9,600. Evan Kamara is next at $78, but I want to talk about Bell for a second. Going up against the Jags D, the last time these two teams played was in Week 5. Pittsburgh got down by a bunch. Bell ended up with 10 receptions in that game. It still is a tough defense to go against. I know the run defense for Jacksonville isn't quite up to snuff like it is in terms of the passing game, but it's still like league average, which isn't bad. Do you pay up for Bell on this short of a slate, or do you let him go by the wayside?
I think I let him go by the wayside. Like, they priced down every other running back to the point where I think that, like, the cost for Bell is simply too much. Like, Le'Veon Bell is like 30% more than Dion Lewis or Freeman or Burkhead or Ingram or Murray. It's just too much for me. There's just no way I can pay that kind of price tag. I know that he can go out there and put up 40-something, but I think he'll be – Gurley was very popular last week. I think Bell will be very popular again this week, even if it's not like the best point per dollar play. And for me, I'm going to pass.
All right, so let's go down to the next 3 guys. Like I mentioned, you got Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, and Leonard Fournette. To me, despite having the toughest matchup as possible, sorry, Siege, the cops are coming for you. That's going to be an issue for you. I think. I don't know. I don't know how good of a getaway guy you are. But it's Kamara for me, despite the bad matchup. Like, Fournette just hasn't looked very good over like the past 6 weeks. He might get all the volume in this matchup, but even last time up against the Steelers, it was one big run towards the end of the game that really separated him and gained all those fantasy points. And then when it comes to Derrick Henry, you're like, if DeMarco Murray gets brought back into the mix, how effective is he really going to be?
Yeah, I really don't see myself paying up for those two guys either. You know, Kamara's in a platoon, and I mean, it's probably a better game script for him this time than it was against the Panthers. You know, probably going to be more likely to be down or in a tight game where they need his reception upside out of the backfield. But for me, it's a situation where the next tier is just so loaded. I don't really see myself paying up here because I kind of want to fit in Gronk wherever possible. And, you know, you got to sacrifice somewhere, and this is probably where I'm going to be willing to sacrifice.
All right, so if you're going to sacrifice from the very top end running backs, does that mean you go straight to Dion Lewis?
I mean, I think Leonard Fournette is an interesting GPP play. I like Jacksonville in this kind of a spot. They played well against this team the first time, and the personnel has really only gotten better for the Jaguars. It's kind of a tough matchup here for the Steelers. You know, they have Jalen Ramsey to put on Antonio Brown, and they can put a safety over the top there. They can cheat on the run, and they can basically make, you know, Big Ben try to nickel and dime it to Jesse James and Juju Smith. And Big Ben has shown a propensity to not be able to do that. He wants to take shots. He wants to throw the ball down the field. And this Jacksonville secondary is very good and really not the way to attack it. So I think that there's a chance that Jacksonville could be playing from in front here. And I know that they abandoned Fournette last week, but Pittsburgh's run D isn't anywhere near as good as the Bills kind of play. They put 9 or 10 in the box. I don't think that Pittsburgh will do that this week. So I think at 69, Fournette has upside.
All right, so again, after that, Dion Lewis is the next guy. You've already expressed that you like the Patriots, jam in all the Patriots. Do you worry that we see some shenanigans in the backfield when it comes to the Patriots now that Rex Burkhead looks like he's going to return, now that James White could mysteriously have a giant playoff game? Is Dion Lewis the lock like he had been the final 2 weeks of the regular season?
No, he's not that much of a lock. I think Rex Burkhead could go back to stealing his goal line work, but the price at 6,600 compared to these other running backs, the floor for Dion Lewis is pretty darn high, and it's not like he can't rush one in from the 1 yard line. So I like Lewis. I like Burkhead. You know, he does have that red zone touchdown equity. So I like both guys, but I don't think like Lewis is the super lock. It's just the price is super fair, and I don't think he's going to come out and like put up a 4 or anything like that.
Could you play Lewis and Burkhead together in a lineup?
Yeah, you could.
Is it something that you think you might do?
Yeah, I just the Patriots for me are just the team this week. Like they're not priced up to the point where I can't fit in 4 or 5 of these guys, and I just like if I told you, Pat, that one team scored 30 points this week, you know, you're taking the Patriots, and then who's the next second one? Like there's a big drop off, right?
Probably the Titans.
The Titans?
Well, the Patriots have no defense. They're going to be up by like 50. It's just going to be Mariota just throwing bombs the entire time.
Oh, Pat, firing the hot takes.
I don't think the Titans are going to win this game, but I certainly do think that they're going to score points.
I mean, you say that like the Pats don't have a defense. Like, can I just read the number of points they've given up in like the last 10 weeks?
Okay, let's hear it. Was this against like Bryce Petty and Hackenberg?
I'm going all the way back to week 5.
Okay.
14, 17, 7, 13, 16, 8, 17, 3, that 27 dud against the Dolphins, 24 against the Steelers, 16 and 6. Like this idea that the Pats defense is bad, I think it's just like this narrative from the first month of the season. And honestly, September football kind of means nothing. Like it's kind of like an extension of training camp. So I think that's a very hot take that you think Tennessee is the second most likely team to score 30 points. But even if you're right, like, I mean, that would just make the Patriots even better plays.
Yeah, potentially so. But I just think that if you're going to play all these Patriots, I would run it back with some Titans. And I don't know which running backs I really want to go to for that because, I mean, do we have word on DeMarco Murray? It does look like he's going to play, right?
Yeah, it looks like he will play in a limited role this week. I just, like, you don't think the Patriots can just go out there and win 42-7 like they did against the Texans the other year?
Sure, but I actually think, not that, again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm overrating how good the Titans are, but I think they have enough skill guys that are decent that they can put up points here, even if it's in complete garbage time.
Yeah, I don't see that, but again, I'm not a Tennessee guy. I thought they were horrible at football. Last week did not convince me otherwise. Like, They got in the game because Marcus Mariota made a pass so bad that it came back to him. Like, okay. Like, the pass was so bad, it should have been intercepted on 3 different levels, but it hits the guy's hand and magically comes right back to him. Like, Andrew Curse at its finest.
Well, hey, I mean, it was the Andrew Curse at its finest. And as we learned from John Gruden in that game, when you have a defensive specialist like Darrelle Revis, who Oakland's going to pay like $45 million to next year if Gruden has any control over it, that, it's tough to do anything against that defense.
I mean, I'm not on the Titans this week. I get it. They're cheap. They kind of can fit in as kind of, I think they'll be a filler for me. Like, if we're starting, when we get to wide receiver, we can talk about it, but it could get to like Eric Decker or some awful play. Like, okay, like I'll have to think about Eric Decker.
I mean, after Eric Decker scored the touchdown last week and everyone was on him anyway, I can see his ownership being out of control.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there's a lot of good value wide receivers this week like there were last week.
Well, who were the value running backs then? Because, I mean, besides Bell and besides Fournette, almost every other situation that we're dealing with is some sort of platoon situation. So I think that actually speaks to Bell a little bit, that if you can get up to him and not devastate the rest of your lineup, which we'll see if it is possible or not, that those are just such safe points in a, like, let's say you take Latavius Murray and it's a Jarek game, or you take Jarek and it's a Latavius game, or you take Freeman and it's a Coleman game. Like, you're really playing with a lot of downside with a lot of those guys.
Yeah, but they're all 65-35 guys. Like, I think Latavius Murray is probably going to be the guy you want at 5,400. I like his spot a fair amount. Like I think like a lot of those situations are 65-35s. Like, can the 35 hit? Sure, but I think if you're taking a Freeman under 6K and a Murray under 5,500, like those are very good plays, and they might not work out. You might get an outlier, but you can't really worry about that. You can only take the best plays on the board and worry about the results when they happen.
Is there an Eagles running back that you think that you might end up going to, whether it be a Jai Blunt? I kind of like Corey Clement a little bit just because of his pass-catching ability out of the backfield. Like, the Falcons know that the Eagles are going to try to run the ball as much as possible here, try to take the game out of the hands of Nick Foles, take the air out of the ball, shrink the clock. Hopefully their defense can keep them close, and maybe just by not throwing any turnovers, the Eagles can go out and win this game. But I think there's going to be a lot of short, easy passes, and I feel like Clement's a guy that they're going to use in that situation.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that he got benched with all the other starters in Week 17. That actually was kind of a red flag in terms of like what I was projecting Blunt to be the guy in the playoffs. I was like, well, they kind of gave Clement the starter's treatment, and they didn't put him out there at all. But I mean, it's really tough to be like, oh, I'm super confident in a guy that's had over like 7 touches like one time in the last month, 2 months.
Oh,
so
very, very true. But he is only $3,200. If there was a way to save money at running back, he seems to be, out of any punt play there is at running back, he seems to be the most viable option. I mean, it's like him or like.
Well, I mean, it could be Blunt, right? Like he gets the 1-yard rushing touchdown at 3,700.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Or you can just pay up for a Jai at 4,600. It's not like he's breaking the bank either. But I think I would just go with the cheapest option. And at least the one thing we've seen about Clement, the guy can find the end zone.
Yeah, but is he going to be on the field? I get it. It's just not like anything I'm going to sit here and be like, oh, that's a great idea.
No, listen, when you're talking about $3,200 for any sort of running back who's the third one on his team, yeah, you're probably not dealing with the best of the best at this point. But if you are someone who wanted to work Le'Veon Bell in, you need to find some money somewhere, don't you?
I think you're making the case more and more why we don't try to force in Le'Veon.
All right, Blunt, Ivory, I mean, Stephen Ridley, there's a hot one. TJ Yeldon was inactive last week. Like, do you take the shot that this is don't go Lewis, don't go Burkhead, this just randomly turns out to be a James White week?
I had actually clicked over to quarterback. I thought we were done at running back. So that's my take on all those guys.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, Freeman or Murray? Last one. Not DeMarco, Latavius.
Yeah, I assume that's what you meant.
I would go Freeman.
I'm probably leaving Latavius, but I get Freeman. I don't hate either one.
All right, well, don't switch over to running backs just yet. Switch over to receivers. Let's talk about those guys because Antonio.
Oh, you changed the order. Okay.
I did. Antonio Brown is coming back off the injury. There's a short piece up on my Twitter social accounts, on the DraftKings social accounts, talking about how if you play in the showdown game, which has the IDP players, I think that Jalen Ramsey's a super sharp play this week because they're going to force the ball to Antonio Brown. And the biggest scoring fantasy day that Jalen Ramsey had all year was against the Steelers because Antonio Brown caught 10 balls and he just made 7 really easy tackles on Antonio Brown. There wasn't a lot of yak that came in with that. Plus, he had like 4 passes defense. He had a pick in that game. You just want, if you're going to take cornerbacks and you're looking for some sort of floor, and you're trying to predict interceptions is really, really tough. But you can predict tackles pretty easily if you know where the ball is going to be going. I think it goes to Antonio Brown. So for you, would you pay up for Le'Veon Bell or Antonio Brown? Because I think you do have to pay up for one of these two guys. They're the best players on the slate.
Ooh, I disagree with that statement.
Okay. I would go with Brown here, coming off the injury.
I would pay up for Brown if I was forced to pay for one or the other. I think the guy I'm paying up for is Gronk.
Why Gronk? Because if this game goes like how you say it's going to go, and it's just a Patriots blowout, don't they just end up, and maybe Gronk's the one who gets all the points for them, and that's how they get up by so much. But if he doesn't, and he misses out on one of those first 2 touchdowns, don't they basically just factor him out of the game, be like, all right, Gronk, save you for next week?
It would be after like 4, and if he doesn't get one of the first 4, I mean, okay, so be it. But like he's 7,100, and tight end is awful. So like for me, it's Gronk is the guy that I'm prioritizing. But Antonio Brown is going to get a lot of catches this week. You know, like Jalen Ramsey's good. He's going to get a lot of pass defenses. I think if you play Antonio Brown and you're playing that, like in that IDP thing, in the IDP game, like the wide receiver cornerback stack is like, has to be one of the strongest correlations. I haven't spent the time to do it, but like if a guy's getting targets, like you're either defending them, tackling him, or he's catching the ball. Like it feels like you're going to capture all the scenarios at that point. So it's a situation for me where if I'm paying up for one, it's Antonio. I don't see myself doing that a ton. I think I like Julio more. I think I like Thielen more. But if I have the money for Antonio, I'm not afraid to use him, but it's not a priority.
So you objectively like Julio to score more fantasy points than Antonio Brown this week. I can't get on board with that. I just, any week, I just always feel like Antonio Brown's going to score more points.
I really like the Jaguars in that game. Everyone in the world is dismissing them after.
But if you like the Jags so much in that game, doesn't that mean that Pittsburgh will have to pass more than expected, and that's just more for Antonio Brown?
Yeah, is he really going to get 20 targets again?
He could.
Is that really the game plan?
Yeah, if the Jags defense is so good in locking everyone down, there is one guy who is impervious to all of this, and that's Antonio Brown. He'll be the guy who's just wide open because he's always open.
I know, but like projecting him for 20 targets.
I'm not projecting him for 20 targets, but let's say I think I can, if as long as he's healthy, or even 80%, which I think that he's going to be. I mean, he's training with Ocho Cinco while he's been injured, so you know that he's going to be fine. But 12 to 15 isn't out of the realm of possibility. That's round ways out.
That's like 6 to 7 catches then, 7 to 8 catches.
Sure, 7 to 8 catches from the top end receiver sounds pretty good, especially when it's Antonio Brown, and he can do more after the catch than Julio can.
I think, but Julio Jones gets like the best matchup. He gets Jalen Mills. Like he gets like the worst corner in the league.
Sure, but you're also not factoring in they don't use Julio. Julio scored a touchdown last week. That means he's good for like 2 years.
I think I get the Antonio PPR love. I understand that. But for me in tournaments, I think I'm going to go ahead and take Julio. I think he's got more 2-touchdown upside. And Antonio Brown has a floor in this spot. You know, he re-aggravates it. He does something and, he twists the wrong way. And there's a lot of risk there with Antonio. But the price is nice. I'm not saying that I won't play him. It's just that he's not a priority for me over Brown. No chance.
Do you think that there is a way to finagle your lineups that you could play both of them? Because you were just talking about
probably.
You were talking about Julio and Thielen. I mean, it's not that much more expensive to go Antonio and Julio or Antonio and Thielen.
Yeah, it's not. I just think I think they're all kind of in the same grouping. I don't think Antonio is that much better than the other guys. He's definitely better, but again, like ownership in tournaments is going to be a factor, and like Thielen will be way lower owned than Antonio will be, and. And Thielen is not going to draw Marcus Lattimore. He's going to have a good matchup on the other side of the field, and he should be getting fed with targets. So, it's more my respect for the Jaguars defense than it is kind of like not liking Antonio Brown.
All right, so with Adam Thielen, obviously you prefer him more than Stefon Diggs because of the Lattimore problem, like you mentioned, that Diggs is probably going to encounter. Michael Thomas is right below him, too, coming off the really big week. Didn't find the end zone, but he was the guy that they leaned on. Do you think that the Saints go back to their passing game this week against the Vikings, who are good at both levels of defense, both stopping the run and against the pass? Or do you think they just kind of pound it up the middle and try to soak some of the air out of this clock?
I don't think Michael Thomas will be part of the passing game. I think Diggs is going to lock him down
Rhodes.
Yeah. I was thinking Diggs. Rhodes. So it's not really a spot where I'm going to have any Thomas at all. Don't mind Ted Ginn. We'll talk about him when we get there in a second. But I do think they'll have to throw the football a little bit. But I just don't think that's going to be a Michael Thomas spot this week.
Let's talk Patriots receivers for 1 sec. Brandon Cooks is $7,000. Chris Hogan is $5,200, and then Amendola is down at $41. Is this a rebound spot to use Hogan in, knowing that his ownership is going to be suppressed in tournaments because he's coming back off the injury? We haven't seen him in a while, and he hasn't been good in a while, really, since before the injury. I mean, what did he really do when he came back? I think people are going to be in love with the Patriots offense, but he could be one of the guys that kind of gets overlooked.
Yeah, I love Chris Hogan this week. I think he's fully healthy. I think they tried to rush him back for that Pittsburgh game because they knew it was a must-win, and they kind of put him back on the shelf. $5,200. I think it's way too cheap for a receiver of his talent. He should probably be in the Juju Diggs price range. So I think we're getting a bit of value here, and it's a team that's going to be throwing the football most of the day today. So, yeah, I like the Patriots, and I like Chris Hogan as well.
All right, so who are the other receivers from up in this range that you think you would go to? Like, would you go to Cooks?
I think I'd play Juju first.
Really? Why Juju?
I just don't. I think that they're going to try to hide Juju in the slot. I think you're going to see a lot of Martavis Bryant outside. I think they're going to try to get Juju in the slot against their weakest corner and try to do some short intermediate stuff with Juju, try to get him going so it's not going to all be Antonio and his 20 targets. Like, Juju wasn't a factor, too, in that first game when Antonio got 20 targets. Like, he wasn't the Juju that we all know and love now. I just think that this is a good situation to try to make Juju the guy that can kind of break the Jaguars' defense over the middle, because Martavis is kind of just a vertical guy. And if you can get Juju against the slot corner, like, he's good, but he's the weakest of the strong links the Jaguars have.
All right, so that entire range, almost from 7,000 all the way down to the Chris Hogans of the world. It starts with Cooks. You mentioned Juju. Ted Ginn's in there. Diggs is in there. Mohamed Sanu, Alshon Jeffrey, Marquise Lee, and Martavis Bryant. Of all those guys, Alshon Jeffrey, he's not underpriced because he has Nick Foles throwing him the ball. But do you think that he garners any sort of massive ownership? Because he seems super cheap.
I don't think so. I think everyone's going to remember what they saw from Nick Foles being terrible those last 2 weeks. I just don't know if I want to be playing Alshon Jeffrey in a game he's a dog in a 41 total when I can just take Ted Ginn, who I know won't be getting the Rhodes treatment, and can kind of just go vertical and get there in one play like we saw last week. And they're going to kind of need that play too. So I think I would rather go another direction before I went with Jeffrey. I think I'd even play Sanu first.
Really? All right, what about in the sub $5,000 level? That starts off with Nelson Aguilar and just drops all the way down to fun guys like Taylor Gabriel and Kenny Britt. Is there any sort of dog here that we can put into our lineups? And I don't want to say confidently, but enough that you feel like the floor is going to be okay, plus there is a lot of upside that goes with it. I kind of like Dede.
I mean, I've rostered a ton of Dede last week, and if Blake Bortles could have thrown a ball within 10 feet of him, it could have been a monster day. He had a slant pattern that would have gone to the house, and he threw 10 yards behind him. It was really embarrassing. But I like Dede this week as well. I think he's one of the options. I think Rashard Matthews, again, is in a decent spot. They actually ended up shadowing him with Marcus Peters, which I was pretty floored by on the vast majority of his routes. So it's kind of, and that's how Decker got those extra looks. It could just be a spot where I know Matthews could get Butler, but he's not the same corner that Peters is. You can beat him. He's got some upside at 4,500. And then, of course, everyone's favorite, Eric Decker.
Well, make a pick. $3,800 Eric Decker, or $3,400 Corey Davis in this spot, coming off a 7-target game.
Do I have to?
Yeah. I'll go Davis, and I yelled at Leone last week for this.
I think Corey Davis is in the better spot this week than he was last week. Like, I think last week Corey Davis was just in a really bad spot.
I mean, he was on a really good spot on the field when he was wide open in the end zone, and Marcus Mariota legitimately overthrew him by 20 yards.
I think I would take Davis, but I'm not very confident in it.
But I mean,
Eric Decker is so bad at football.
I mean, he loved.
Like, if he doesn't get that touchdown, he got bailed out. Like, the thing is, like, he got such a bailout, and everyone's gonna go right back. And it's just like, I know better. Like, the responsible thing to do is just fade Eric Decker and let him be 40-something% owned again, and just hope to God he doesn't catch that touchdown.
I happen to agree with you. I think especially because he got the touchdown last week, factor in all the recency bias. If he was that owned, he's going to be, I mean, he is the punt receiver to go with to save money. So he's going to be around like 20, 25, maybe 30%. If Corey Davis is only going to be 10%, I mean, I think that there is a less than 3-to-1 chance that Eric Decker outscores Corey Davis in the spot.
Yeah, that's the right strategy. I just am afraid Eric Decker's going to burn me again.
I'll let him burn you. It's fine. Let Eric Decker cash in. If he has a bad game, then you're way ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, you're not telling me anything I don't already know. I don't think Eric Decker's good at football. I've been long on the record saying that from August. And if he just burns me and get in another playoff week, I'm going to break something.
What are you going to break?
Probably a mouse. I have like a box of mouses. I break them at a very regular rate.
You need to get your anger under control, pal.
It just breaks them nice. What's the big deal? They're cheap. They're like $2 mice from Walmart. You throw it on the ground, you feel good about it, and you throw it in a trash can. You move on. You take a new one out of the box.
Mr. Elite Siege breaking all of his electronics because he can afford more. What's it like to be in your ivory tower?
I mean, they're $2 mice for a reason. It's not like they're $20 mice I'm breaking all the time.
Hey, it's just wasteful, is all I'm saying. It's like when my wife yells at me for using too much paper towel. Apparently, I have a problem. I like to use a lot of paper towel. What can I say? Like, I want to soak the shit up.
I mean, again, like, there's problems in life to have breaking $2 mice and using too much paper towel. Not one of them.
Okay, let's move to quarterbacks. Brady is way above the pack here when it comes to pricing, $700 more than the next closest option. You project all the points in that game. That's what Vegas is projecting in terms of team totals. What are you seeing here?
Yeah, love Brady this week. And especially at this price, it's not too hard to fit him in. He's probably going to be the guy I roster on most teams, kind of like Alex Smith was last week. I thought he was clearly the best option and would probably just go overweight the field one more time on the best option. I don't see if Tom Brady doesn't get there, it's because Rex and Dion have like 5 rushing touchdowns combined. So kind of a situation where if that happens, so be it. I'll probably build a hedge, but it's a situation where I love Tom Brady.
If you need to save the money, I actually don't think Mariota is a terrible option with so much garbage time to work with, plus the rushing that comes along with him.
Wouldn't you rather just save the extra $900 and go all the way down to Blake Bortles?
No, I wouldn't.
He could not have played any worse.
Yeah, but just because he can't play any worse doesn't mean he's going to play better.
But if he gets you 16 points again for $5K, that works.
Sure, he can get the 16 points, but at least I know that there is a potential with Mariota that he can score more than 30.
I just think Blake Bortles he's put up multiple games in the 28 range, and we're talking about recency bias, and he's had 2 of his 2 worst games of the entire season in the last 2 weeks. Like, he wasn't this bad all season. Like, this offense was putting up points, and he was throwing the ball effectively. Like, okay, he had a bad game. He was nervous in his first playoff game. We've seen this before, where the team looks shaky, then they go on the road, and they play up a much better football game. This Jaguars team has played up to the level of their competition all season. You know, they've beaten some great teams. Like, they beat Pittsburgh on the road by 21, and then they lost to Tennessee twice. So I think Blake Bortles is going to be way overlooked here. He's not as bad as people think. He's better than Nick Foles, and he's not even priced like that salary cap wise. He's been willingness to run the football. He has like the 4th highest like rush per attempt in quarterback history. It was a really weird stat I saw during the game. I just think that Blake Bortles has upside here, and it's ugly. It's not fun. It's certainly something I wouldn't want to sit there and watch if I rostered him, but I don't hate the spot for Mr. Bortles.
I can't do that. I feel like I'm just burning lineups if I'm going to do that. I kind of feel the same way about Foles as well, but I think that Mariota, Matt Ryan range is where I would, if I'm not going to pay up for Brady, I think that's where I'm going to look at. Although, the Saints defense didn't look so sharp last week. Is Keenum in play? Because I don't think anyone's going to use him.
What do you mean? The Saints defense was fine. Like, they didn't expect Carolina to actually use Christian McCaffrey half competently because they hadn't used them competently all season, and they got caught off guard. Like, don't worry, that's not going to happen here in Minnesota. We know what the Minnesota offense is. It's Case Keenum in a playoff game. There could be some nerves here, some jitters. You know, Minnesota knows, like, they win, they don't have to leave that stadium, simply put. Like, I'm dismissing Philadelphia having any chance of winning that football game.
I don't know. I actually think Philly's kind of live in that game. Let's be real here. Atlanta can lay a dud like no other, too.
Atlanta feels like that team of destiny that sneaks in and they kind of get hot.
Potentially. But, I mean, they're a team that could both win against any team in the NFC, but I feel like they could lose to them, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For me, it's a situation, though, that Minnesota will know by game time. Like, let's say Atlanta wins, like, okay, like, we win out, we don't leave this stadium, and that includes in the Super Bowl. And I could see that pressure getting to a guy like Case Keenum. So, for me, if I'm playing quarterback this week, it's Brady, it's Bortles. Maybe you could talk me into a little Matt Ryan, but, like, that's kind of it for me. I don't really have any – I don't think I'm going to get cute at quarterback. I think there's clear-cut options at the top and the bottom, and I'm not going to try to get cute in between.
I'll get cute. I'll end up going with Marcus Mariota more probably.
You love that Titans offense, man.
It's just because half of it's because now that you just hate them so much because all you're doing is just being the world's biggest Patriot homer. But the
Titans have been terrible at football all
season. There's access to a lot of points, easy points for them in this game if the Patriots start to roll like they can. I think that's
easy points against a defense. We just went over it. The Patriots given up over 20
All right, so you want to play Tom Brady so much? Read me out his stats over the past month. How great has he been?
They haven't needed him.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's
and by the way,
flip the switch.
So he put up 16, 16, 16. It's not like he's been terrible.
That's great. I mean, you did just say that if Blake Bortles can score 16 points, that would be a great play for his price point. It's not so great at Brady's price point.
Yeah, but it's a playoff game, too. I know that they're not going to take their foot off the gas pedal like they did in those last two games.
Oh, okay. So, when it's convenient to lean on the Patriots narratives, it's fine. But, the fact that what are they in defense? What, the 30th ranked DVOA? And it's even by adjusted DVOA?
They have been fine. Like, they were awful the first month of the season. Throw those numbers out. They mean nothing.
But that's why it's weighted. I mean, this goes along throughout the course of the season and weights what's been happening more.
How? Like they gave up points to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and now they're suddenly a bad defense. I mean, come on. Like, this is kind of getting silly now. I mean, hey, if you're telling me the Patriots defense is going to be unowned, I'm thrilled. You can sign me up.
All right. I mean, listen, when you're playing against the Titans offense, you're right. You can generate a lot of turnovers. But I just think, again, with Marcus Mariota running around, he has the potential to be the highest upside play on this board. Just with the Patriots, they don't give up a ton of points. You're right. But they do give up a ton of yardage. And that's something that can come into play very easily for Mariota. Breaks one tackle and boom, he's rushing into the end zone.
Bill Belichick versus a young quarterback. It's a quarterback that threw more interceptions than touchdowns this season was really bad all season. I'm
sorry. Has Belichick ever had to play against a quarterback that can throw touchdowns to himself?
That's a fair point. But to be fair, the Patriots defenders hopefully will actually catch the ball instead of knocking it right back to him.
I mean, that's potentially on the table. But, hey, there's no one on that defense who's as good as Darrelle Revis, according to John Gruden.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why John Gruden's getting paid the big bucks, I guess.
Oh, also, maybe the Patriots come out and score 0 points because Brady hates management so much, he just throws it to the other team to spite them.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that's going to happen.
You don't think that they're going to be affected at all by this fake news story that the Patriots clearly planted?
You think they clearly planted it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, interesting.
Oh, what other reason would they have? Doesn't it all seem kind of suspicious?
I mean, it is another, the Patriots can play the world against us card again. For
yeah.
Like the 6 straight playoffs in a row. There is that factor.
I'm not buying into that fake news. The Patriots are the favorites for a reason, and eventually they're going to have to pretend like they are the favorites because they are.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's going to be this season, that's for sure.
You don't think they're going to win it this season, or do you think they're going to play that card this season?
I don't think they're going to play that card. And let me just say, I want Pittsburgh to win that football game. I do not want to see Jacksonville as a Patriots fan. Do not.
That could be famous last words for you when Pittsburgh goes in and potentially beats them. Probably not likely.
That's fine. I mean, they could. That's fine. I do not want to see the Jaguars in Foxborough. I do not want to see that.
I don't know. Maybe they score more than 10 points against New England. Although, according to you, the Patriots give up negative 8 points per game, so that would be near impossible.
No one ever said that. It's just like if they give up, like Marcus Mariota is just like, he's not good. He's just, if I told you to rank these guys on talent, he's going to be like 6th, maybe 7th.
Sure, but we're playing DraftKings here, and I'm looking for fantasy points.
But he's priced as the 5th most expensive quarterback.
Yeah, but you're
not even getting any value.
You are getting value on that price. I just think that there's upside to be had because of his rushing.
Oh wow, yeah, he has. I don't think there's that much. I don't think the rushing upside is what you think it is, but okay.
Okay, let's move to tight ends. You say you love Gronk. Gronk is where you want to pay up for, but let's throw Gronk off of this slate. Who is the next best guy that you would go with?
That's kind of the issue.
Josh Hill, Kyle Rudolph, Zach Ertz.
I mean, they're daring you to play Zach Ertz at this price. They're daring you. I actually probably would play some Ertz at 58. It's probably Ertz at 58. Like we saw Foles throw some dump down passes to him over the middle in the Raiders game. I don't hate that idea. Atlanta's not great against tight ends. I don't hate Delaney Walker for some dump down over the middle stuff, but it's not my favorite. I think if I wasn't playing Gronk or Ertz, I'd punt with either Josh Hill or Trey Burton.
See, I would go the other way with it, and you kind of hit, if your projection of how this Jacksonville-Pittsburgh game goes, I think I would punt with Vance McDonald at $2,500.
Vance McDonald.
Yeah, everyone's. By the way, almost like how everyone punted with Austin Hooper last week, everyone is going to punt with Josh Hill this week.
Yeah, but Josh Hill's been playing a lot of passing snaps, and like there's a road for him to get targets. Like maybe we should have been punting with Josh Hill last week. Like I don't think this is just like a crazy idea. Like he's been passing down tight end for a while. Like he was probably the better punt last week that we all just ignored. But I wasn't punting tight end. But if I had, I feel like that was probably the better play. But I like Trey Burton. He's got some sneaky upside here. He can catch some touchdowns here. You know, Nick Foles and him had some chemistry on the second unit. Again, I'm not punting tight end, but he's way too talented to be 2,700 in a must-win game. Like they could run a lot of two tight end stuff this week. So I don't hate that idea. But for me, it's Gronk, and more Gronk.
Rudolph at 45 doesn't seem like the worst price.
Well, he's 4,700.
47, sorry, yeah.
Do you get the employee price discount there, Pat?
I do. That's one of the features of being an associate of DraftKings that I get. I get an extra $500 on the salary cap.
Oh, man.
And they know they can give it to me because I'm so bad at this that it doesn't matter either way.
Kyle Rudolph at 47. I get it, sure. Just not my favorite Viking, but I get it.
Well, I mean, if Lattimore is going to be taken out by Diggs, not every pass is going to go to Adam Thielen. And inside the red zone, if they don't just pound it from the 1 yard line with Latavius Murray, if they're on like the 9 yard line, I can just see a lot of potential upside in red zone usage for Kyle Rudolph. Yeah,
I don't hate it. I don't think I'm just going to be like, oh, it's the best play on planet Earth. It's fine. I'm just not I'm not thrilled to roster Kyle Rudolph.
All right, let's close this out with DSTs. They dynamite. Steelers coming in at number 1, $3,800. Then we drop down to the Falcons, Jags, and Patriots. That's your above $3,000 level. Then the Vikings, the Saints, the Eagles, and the Titans. I know when Carson Wentz went out, all of a sudden the Eagles defense gave up 30 points to the Giants, but the Eagles defense is still a high-scoring, high-upside defense with the pressure they can generate. I don't hate them as the punt defense at $2,600.
I don't hate them. I don't think I'm going to be on it. I think I just really like Atlanta in this football game. But if you're not high on Atlanta, I can definitely see the upside for Philly. They still have good special teams. It is a dome team going outside. So there's definitely all those sorts of advantages that you would want. And it's going to be a raucous crowd, obviously. It's going to be cold. So I definitely can see the Eagles defense for sure. I can see everyone dismissing the Saints against Case Keenum. Like, it's still Case Keenum. I know he had a great season, but you know, the clock can strike midnight on Case Keenum at any time. and he can revert back to the pumpkin he always was. So I think there's upside there. But for me,
Jags?
Patriots.
I mean, if you're going to give me the chance to pay for the Jags at $100 more, who actually generate pressure on quarterbacks, well, they could end up getting blown out, and there's probably no chance of that happening with the Patriots. I think just the upside that comes along with the Jags D is so much higher.
Yeah, I like the Jags D. I like the Falcons D as well. But if you're telling me that the Patriots defense is not going to get any respect because everyone's playing Eric Decker, I'll take the low ownership in tournaments. Like, this is a defense the last few weeks that's been putting up some decent fantasy production. 13-10. You know, they had the bad game against Pittsburgh and Miami, but then 13-17-9, 13-9. Like, pretty solid performances.
Okay. I mean, I'll go Jags. Maybe I will use a few shares, but if I do need to pay down, for me, it's going to be the Eagles. It's not going to be the Titans. I'll tell you that much.
No, it definitely will not be the Titans. I can definitely agree with that. They'd have to be like 1K for me to maybe consider it.
What if they were $500? What if you got my discount? They were $500.
If they were $500, I definitely would have them on some tournament teams.
Maybe, but they might score like -8 points.
Possible, but I probably would still have some because then you get an extra like stud player, and at that point, like, you could probably make up the points.
This is true. All right, the Siege, CJ Kaltenbach. You can follow him on Twitter at TheSiegeDFS and on RotoGrinders. Plus, you can listen to him anytime you want. Siege, plug away.
Yeah, Morning Grind Podcast. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere you can need your podcasts, Monday through Friday. So do check out the Morning Grind Podcast. We've got our own special feed, so check it out.
Are you doing exclusively, during non-football days, is it exclusively basketball now?
Yeah, we still do football, though. But, yeah, mostly basketball. Sometimes we throw a random hockey in there. No. Hockey podcasts are fun because our pronunciations are pretty terrible.
Hockey's a tough one to really wrap your mind around.
I like the sport. I just don't have enough time to play it regularly, sadly.
Oh, I was just saying about like pronouncing Slovakian players' names.
Oh, yeah. There's just no chance. I'm awful with pronunciation. I can't even spell my username right. So what odds are there that I can spell like a Slovakian name right?
All right, I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ThePME. You can find my cheat sheet up on the DK Playbook and subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience on the DraftKings YouTube page and for the audio podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, plus Audio Boom, the host feed, if you want to go do that. Give the episode a like, goes a long way. Tell a friend, leave a review, all that fun stuff that does not take all that much time. Please do it. I'm begging you. I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck this week. I'll see you next time.